Okay, and we're all set. Okay, so you are Milton Williams.
Yep. I was born in 52 Chase Avenue, Lowell, Mass.
Okay.
In 1921.
Okay.
I went to Lowell High School. I graduated from Lowell High School in 1940. And went to work in an Agawam Dye Works. I don't know if you want all that in there or not.
Yeah, we can put it in. I can just take it off of here. What kind of company was that?
It was they dyed yarn, all kinds of yarn.
Oh, okay.
And I worked there for 40 cents an hour.
Wow.
And that was 1941. And then, of course, Pearl Harbor was January 1942.
Mm-hmm.
So within a month, I enlisted, along with two of my neighbors from Pawtucket, Warren Reardon and Joe Hooley.
Joe Hooley.
The three of us went to Boston to enlist, and we were going to go in the Navy. We went to the Navy building, and they were lined up 4 deep down the street.
Wow.
So we said, well, that's the end of the Navy. So we went to the Army and enlisted, and we thought, we were under the impression that we'd be taken up to Fort Devens and given a uniform, and then they'd let us come home so our wives and mothers and sweethearts could see us, but that didn't happen. They drove us up to Fort Devens, outfitted us with the uniforms and shots everywhere you can imagine, zoom, and we were on a train to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri, within
Right
36 hours. Yeah,
wow.
We were at Devens 36 hours, and we went to Jefferson Barracks, Missouri, which is right outside of St. Louis.
My mother never forgave them.
Now you're writing this down. You're not recording this.
It is recording.
There's no more picture.
Yep, it's still going. The little light.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So then you went to
we went to Jefferson Barracks, and it
outside
was
of St. Louis,
basic
right?
training.
St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
Basic training, and all kinds of tests to see if you were mechanically inclined and so forth. And 2 of us out of the 3 were sent to Chanute Field, which is in Rantoul, Illinois.
Okay.
I don't know if you want me to spell it for you.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, it's Chanute Air Force Base.
Yeah, Chanute, yeah.
Air Force Base?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's in
And
Illinois?
that was for
Illinois.
aircraft maintenance. It was a 10, I don't know, I think it was 10 different, what would we call it?
Classes.
Yeah, no, not classes.
Sections.
Yeah, like a section, anyway.
Parts of the
You know,
airplane.
first you take the engine, then you take the wing,
Right, that's what my
and
dad
from
did.
there, I got the dates written down here, but we were sent to Farmingdale, Long Island.
Wow.
Republic Aviation, I think it was, yeah. Farmingdale, Long Island. And we had tour of the plant and so forth, and introduced to the plane, the P-47 Thunderbolt,
Okay.
which, by the way, I'm going to make a little notation here, which everything on this plane was run by hydraulics. It was 100% hydraulics on this particular plane.
And this was something new that
Well, it was new to us.
Right.
But the reason I mention it is because, I'll tell you in another minute, when we finally got the planes that we were going to go overseas with, they were 100% electric.
Oh.
But
So
I
you
wager
didn't
you
even-
in 1940 that was probably, the leading edge.
The hydraulics?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
And then so when you got over there
Well, first of all, no, that was, from there we went to Dale Mabry Field
okay.
in Tallahassee, Florida.
I've been there.
And don't ask me why we went there, because we didn't do anything. We never got the planes. All we did was basic training again, all over again. From there, we were shipped to Muroc, Muroc, California, on the Mojave Desert,
Which is now Edwards.
which is now
Edwards. Okay.
You ever watched the movie The Right Stuff?
Yes.
That's where it was. That's Muroc.
Okay.
And
Muroc before it was called Edwards.
Okay.
this is where we got our planes. We got the P-39, which is a fighter plane.
Yeah.
And that's
And that's what the one that you worked on that was
yes,
electric?
that was the electric, all electric.
Wow.
So after the, I'm not spending any time here. I'm going, this is all done over a period of months.
Right.
From there, we went to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey. Do you want any side stories while I'm going
Yeah,
along
of
in
course.
this?
Sure. They send you all over the place.
My
it seems
mother
like just,
Yeah,
And
crazy.
my
yeah.
sweetheart, who ended up being my wife, but wasn't at the time,
Mhm.
went to the main gate in New Jersey to try to see us. And they said, "How do you know he's here?" Because you weren't really supposed to be top secret.
Right.
But needless to say, we had shipped out the day before, so they never did get to see us. So from Camp Kilmer, you take a train to the Hudson River and get on barges, and the barges cross the river, and we went from the barges to the Queen Mary. We boarded the Queen Mary, which was in late September 1942.
Okay.
Now the Queen Mary crosses the ocean unescorted. She relies on speed.
Mm-hmm.
She's fast, and she changes course every 8 minutes. The theory is that it takes a submarine 10 minutes to sight or to line up their sight, so the Queen Mary zigzags every 8 minutes. And she carries anywhere from 10 to 15,000 troops.
Wow.
So there's a lot of us on these ships.
Yeah, it's neat. They set a record with that ship. It was the largest number of people ever on a ship in the history of nautical seagoing.
I can imagine. And no
escort.
escorts,
Just speed.
Yeah, there were 15,500 people on that voyage.
That's unbelievable.
On
that
one ship.
That particular trip was the 18th trip she had made, the Queen Mary.
And was it all just servicemen, or it
Yes.
was?
No,
Oh yeah, all service.
troops.
Oh yeah. No civilians.
Wow.
No, this is all military.
Yeah, they drained the swimming pools and turned them into chow
Kitchens.
halls.
That could be a project in itself. So
Yeah, all the rooms had the beds removed, and ever see the Navy where they get those cloth slings?
Yeah.
Where you sleep in that little, and every room was just packed full of them. And
Wow, I didn't even know. That's unbelievable.
So on the 4th day, we were met by 5 British corvettes. They're slightly smaller than a destroyer.
Okay.
3 of them were way in advance of us. You could see them, but they were out ahead, making sure there's no submarines.
Mm-hmm.
One of them trailed us down the back, and the 5th one was all over the place.
Okay.
And this is one of the saddest parts of the story coming up now. The 5th one came up on our right-hand side and turned left, and the Queen Mary turned right. And we cut them right in half with a heavy loss of life.
Wow.
This can all be,
Googled.
yeah, you can get this all in the names of the ships and everything on TV. If you
Yeah.
want to.
The ship's supposed to turn the same way at the same time.
Right.
That's something you could do when
And they
you're
just-
Whatever. Who knows which one turned the wrong way? But one of them turned the wrong way and just ran them over.
Okay. And so then what happened to?
Well, the other 3 up in front went back, and they all went back to look for survivors.
Mm-hmm.
And the bow of the Queen Mary was caved in and flooded and slowed down to 7 knots.
Okay.
And they were worried about the bulkheads holding in the Queen Mary, but
It's like the movie, which I'm sure you've seen, romantic movie, The Titanic.
Yes.
You see her in the end of the movie, she's running through the hallway, chest
In the
deep
water.
in ice water in her negligee.
Mm-hmm.
Well, by the time they got turned around, it took like 5-10 minutes to pick up those sailors. They're hard as rock, frozen solid.
Wow. In September in the Atlantic Ocean.
yeah, this is North
I can
Atlantic.
imagine.
So
So-
she wasn't running through any hallways.
Right.
The
Yeah.
The Queen Mary, we had no casualties on the Mary. The only thing they were worried about was the flood. The front section was flooded. Now that Queen Mary was then we landed Oh gosh,
Ireland, wasn't it?
no, Scotland.
No, Scotland.
But I'm trying to think of. We went up the Clyde River. We landed at Glasgow. Yeah,
So then you were in Glasgow?
yeah. You don't really land in Glasgow because they stop out in the middle of like a lake and they bring you in on barges. The Queen Mary was too big to
Yeah.
get into the shore. So then from there, they put us on trains and we came down to Newcastle on the Tyne. That's the River Tyne, Newcastle.
Time?
Yeah, Tyne or something like that.
Okay. I can look up all the,
Yeah, the
the
spelling.
names and spell them.
And then we got a pass and we went into town. I'm just giving you little side stories. You know, I've passed up a lot of side stories, but we went into town and they didn't know who we were. They thought we were Russians.
Really?
Well, yeah, 2 or 3 of us were walking down the main street and they thought we were Russians. You know, we were attracting attention because we were the first Americans that hit Glasgow.
Right.
You know. So from there we went to, well, I'll tell you another little story now. The pilots, the British had Spitfires on this particular field, so our pilots wanted to, and they were very, very cooperating. They let some of our pilots take up some of the Spits. One of them, of course, this is regular. The Spitfire is standard. You know what am I trying to say now? It's not the P-39 is tricycle.
Oh, it had a tail wheel versus a nose
The
wheel.
P-39 has a nose wheel, so you can't nose it over. But the Spitfire is like this. And if you pick the tail up too soon when you're going down the runway, the propeller hit the ground, takes off about 4 or 5 with wooded props,
Wow.
and then it go up and fly and come back down. That was one of the things the Americans did to the Spitfire on that particular flight.
Well, I heard we've done a lot about the Spitfire in class. Like, it was such a
Yeah, famous, very romantic. I mean, everybody loved it. You know, it was the
Efficient, it was
prettiest
like-
airplane.
Before
Yeah.
you go, I'll show you. I got them in the other room. I got some pictures on the wall.
okay.
So from there we went to. No, see, let me see now. I know where it is. I'm trying to think of the name now. Grimsby.
Grimsby.
We went to Grimsby.
And
And we equipped our planes with wing tanks, fuel tanks, carry extra gasoline, because they're going to have to fly from England to Africa.
Okay.
So when the planes were all ready to go, now I'll tell you about we were working at night. This is another little side that's in my mind. We were working at night on the planes and the hangar doors were open just enough for a person to get through. And if there's an air raid, and sure enough, we had an air raid. So you run to the door, and I'll never forget this as long as I live. We would squeeze through the door, and the whole sky was lit up with flares. The Germans had dropped flares, and you could see all the planes on the runways, and we're saying, "Oh no, we're the
Yeah.
target," you know. So we run to this, but we weren't the target. The target was Hull, the city of Hull, which is right across the bay. So we didn't get hit with any bombs, but it was quite a scene, you know.
Yeah, I know that they used to drop the flares.
Drop the flares so the planes coming over later on could see what was going on. So that was the end of our work there. And then the pilots and the planes took off for Africa, North Africa. We trucked, though they took us in trucks across England to Liverpool.
Okay.
And we got on Her Majesty's ship. See, John,
Yeah, I remember the name of the British ship. He hated the British food.
oh, it was terrible. Yeah, it was to us.
Very, very bland.
Yeah.
See, I can't come up with it now.
Probably have a lot to
The
drink
name of
there,
the Franconia.
Franconia?
Her Majesty's ship Franconia.
Okay, so you went to Liverpool to get on that.
Yes.
And then
Now, there were 12 ships in the convoy, and we sailed for North Africa.
Okay.
And my memory of that trip was not good. I had a sore throat. I wasn't feeling good. I was, like sick with a sore throat. And the water was so rough that the ship nearest us would go out of sight in the swells.
Between the waves.
Yeah.
And of course, I'm not a good sailor.
And so this is the winter of
This is October.
October Of 42?
Wait a minute now. Wait a
Yeah,
minute.
that'd be 42.
I landed in Iran in January. I stayed in England all my time in England. No, it wasn't October. No, it would be January.
January of 43
43.
now, okay.
Okay.
Now, it took us 12 days, and we landed in Oran,
Mhm.
North Africa,
We did that.
after a
And what
miserable
country is Iran?
Morocco.
Morocco.
I don't know. Maybe it's Algeria. I don't
I
know.
was going to say
because
Algeria. Yeah.
see, let me explain something to you. In a
Yeah.
fighter squadron like ours, it was always like I went to England to work on the planes, and half the squadron went directly into Africa to be there when the planes landed. Everywhere we worked, we split. Half would go ahead and half would follow, so all through the whole. So we went to Oran, and then we went back to Port Lyote to join up the rest of the squadron.
Okay. Lyote.
But I landed in Oran on January the 17th, 1943, which is my wife's birthday.
Wow.
And I'll tell you a little story about that too. When you see Oran from out on the ship, it looked all white stucco. It looked so nice, And then when we landed and saw the natives laying there with big sores on their legs and flies, and you wonder how the heck they could live. It was very,
Classic third world country.
yeah,
It's
right, exactly.
happened all over Africa.
But it
It's
was-
still that.
And I asked the doctor, I said, how do they survive? He says, hey, over years, thousands of years, the strong survive and the weak die off, So now 1943, I'm now in North Africa. And I'm
Now,
there for,
On a side note, very few Americans know when we invaded North Africa, who did we attack and fight?
The
French.
British.
No, the French.
Oh, the French.
Yeah,
Not
sure.
the Germans.
Yeah,
The French.
Morocco and them were all
Well,
French.
because French was. Oh yeah, Morocco was
Yeah,
French,
yeah,
and French was
sure.
occupied.
And the
They were-
French were so mad that we didn't invade mainland France that they resisted our invasion of Africa.
We
Wow,
tried dating the
I didn't-
girls.
Yeah,
You
that only
couldn't date a
lasted like
girl.
2 weeks.
Because I know the British and the American troops didn't get along so well at first in Africa,
Right.
and then
Like
But-
we'd go to church on Sunday, and because all they were there with their families. And everything. You couldn't, if you wanted to date a girl, it's just a walk. You had to take the whole family with you. They didn't trust the GIs, which I
Well,
can't say
they were
that I blame
smart.
them. So now in the next year, I'm covering all these places in North Africa. We were constantly moving. A fighter squadron has to be located within an hour's flight of wherever the combat is.
okay.
So we went from, I'm gonna rattle off the cities and towns. I went from Port Lyote to Oran, or vice versa. Thalep, I can't even tell you how to spell it. TH. It's down in the middle of Tunisia. I can't think of Thalep. Anyway,
I'll look it all up.
we went to Bone, Bone, Bizerti, Sous, S-O-U-S, I think it is. Fax, F-X-A-X. And Tunis,
Mhm.
and now we're ready to go over to Sicily. And when we landed now I flew. All these trips were all made different ways. Sometimes we took a train, sometimes we took trucks. And on this particular flight, I flew because I was going over to Sicily, Palermo. But when we landed in Tunis, there's another little side. We had just crossed northern Africa's a lot of mountains, and the plane was, and me with my air sickness,
No
So when
seasickness,
we
air sickness?
landed in Tunis, everybody went to eat except me. I laid in the shade under the wing to get my equilibrium back again. So that was just a little side note. That's all. So
when you were going to these different cities, you didn't stay there very long, only enough to.
Well, yeah, it might have been a month. It might have been 2 months because we were there. I spent a whole year in North Africa.
Wow. So the total of all of those different places was 1 year.
Correct.
Yeah.
But as the battle would occur, we'd win that battle, then they would move up to
Move
the
on.
next one,
Yeah.
another battle, move up to the next one.
In the whole year that we were in North Africa, I never slept on a bunk or a bed or anything like that. There were none.
So
We'd get mattress covers and put hay in them and whatever we could. And we slept on the ground, below the ground. We dug holes and slept below the ground. I'm not covering all that. It wasn't a pleasure trip,
First time I ever learned that it freezes in the desert.
Yeah, it's
Well, it
hot
gets
in the
cold.
day, it gets cold at night.
Well, what's worse than that is during the day, the desert is loaded with these they look like little, not cat, what am I trying to think of now? The one that's on TV, the lizards,
Oh,
Oh.
geckos.
geckos. You know, you're working all on the plane, they're running all over the place, they have holes, you know.
Salamander-looking things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're weird looking little things, you know. So when we sleep at night, we sleep below the ground. We had to dig a hole, and the two people would dig a hole down about 6 feet, and the two people went on, and you know, you'd be sleeping and something would run across your foot, you know.
Yeah.
And all you think of is those things that you saw during the day. But this one particular time, I got a flashlight, and it was a mouse. And he was in a sleeve up. We had to put our overcoats over us, and you know, whack him with the overcoat and threw him out. But that's just a little side story.
Yeah.
So we fly to Sicily.
Scorpions in your shoes in the
I was
morning.
gonna say there must have been some scorpions in
Yeah,
them.
you
No,
said you
I
dumped your
never-
shoes out every
never had-
morning
no,
before you put your foot in
I
them.
never had a problem. I never gave up. I never had scorpions on my mind, so I don't know.
So there was never any, you know, you just moving on, you were lucky. I mean, you just kept.
Now, we didn't stay in Sicily very long, although one squadron.
Yeah, because you got strafed in Germany. You were very lucky.
Wait a minute now.
Those
wait a
two
minute.
ME
no, that was North Africa. I got straight from.
Yeah, not Germany, North Africa, but the two German ME-109s.
No, it's three of them. Three German 109 strafed us. It was like a big dry lake. Now, in a group like mine, I know I should have mentioned this. I was in the 81st Fighter Group,
Okay.
and the group is made up of 3 squadrons. 91st, 92nd, and 93rd. Now, I was in the 93rd Squadron. My close friend Warren Ridden, who came from Lowell too, he was in the 91st Squadron. He was on one part of that lake, and all of a sudden we're working, all of a sudden we hear, you know, and we knew it was Germans. Fighter planes were strafing up. And the only place I could go was there was ruts from trucks. You'd lay down in a rut and hope that, but nobody get hurt. But one of the planes got shot down right in front of us.
Okay.
And he went about a half a mile, and he went up like that. He bailed out. The plane crashed, and he came down, and we went to see him in the field. He was an 18-year-old German pilot. He had 40 missions on the Russian front. He had flown 40 missions against the Russians.
At 18?
Yes. Now he's in North Africa, and this is what he told us. He says, we should not be fighting each other. He says, we should be fighting the Russians.
The Russians.
And that was in 1943, he said that.
I know. We just got to the end of the war, and that was what they were all kind of hoping, that we would stop fighting Germany and start fighting Russia, which later was an issue.
So anyway, from Sicily, we went back to Tunis, and here's another little side story. The place that we stayed in Tunis was loaded with these folding cots. The army has a cot, you know. And we said, we don't know where we're going, but we're going to have something to sleep on. So every one of us took a cot and put it in a barracks bag, and we took them with us.
Good.
So now see, the squadron broke up again. I flew from Africa to India. Warren Ridden went by boat through the Suez Canal, and he landed in, I don't know where the hell he landed. He might have landed in Karachi. We flew from North Africa. We went to Tripoli and stopped for gas. And these are just refueling places. Tripoli, Cairo. Then we went up. I don't know if you want to. We flew.
You had to fly over all the great pyramids.
Yeah, they flew over the pyramids so we could see the pyramids. You know, the pilot made a
Yeah.
little side trip for us. Because it was a C-47 we were flying in. There was no luxury there, no seats at all. Just, you know, hard seats along us. Did you know he's a pilot? He's retired from the Air Force.
Yep, my dad
Yeah.
just retired from the Air Force also.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh, he'd enjoy these stories.
Yeah, he's coming tonight actually, so I'm gonna show him the video.
So then we went up along the coast, and then we flew over Jerusalem and the Dead Sea, and then out over Saudi Arabia, all desert, and all we followed was the pipeline down in the sand, you know, the pilot. And we landed in Abadan, which is in Iraq. No, I think it's in Iran. Abadan, it's in Iran. For refueling.
Okay.
Then we flew on to Karachi, K-A-R-A.
It's now Pakistan.
It's
Back
now
then it was
Pakistan,
India.
Karachi.
Okay.
It's now Pakistan.
All right.
That was before Great
And
Britain
we-
gave them their independence.
Now we got our P-47s.
Okay.
The ones that we saw back 2 years ago in Republic Aviation. And they had come over on what we call deck cargo. They came over covered with grease. You know, they grease every place that could rust. And the natives washed them for us. We didn't do it ourselves.
And this was in Pakistan?
This was this was India then.
Oh, in India.
Pakistan was
Right.
India.
Oh, well,
No
yes,
such
India
thing.
now. Yeah.
England was in control of all of India.
Although that'd be interesting, did the Pakistani people call it Pakistan in those days? Because they were, of course, mad at Britain.
Right.
Yeah, but that was India.
Illegally, yeah.
And then we took a train, and I got another little story for you. We took a train, and the trains in India are like the ones in England. They're compartments. They're not a big open car with seats. 6 or 8 people get in one of these little compartments right around, you know. So we're all lined up, and we got our compartment, and somebody went in and they saw some bugs walking around in our compartment. He says, I have a bomb. He says, why don't we get out, and we'll put this bomb in here and turn it on, and then we'll close the doors and kill the bugs.
Mm-hmm.
We said, yeah, sounds like a good idea. But it didn't work. All we did is excite them. They came out of the wall boards and out of the seats. It was loaded with bugs.
Oh.
So we killed what we could. We had to get in because the train was leaving.
Yeah.
That was just a little side story. And the trip across India is beyond words. You'd have to do it to realize what, you know, every place the train stopped, the women with children within their arms would run down. They're all begging bakshish. The word bakshish is they're begging for. You know, we throw them crackers, cookies, whatever we wanted to. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And another, like in the morning, before the train would leave, we'd line up and they'd give us 3 or 4 cans of sea rations, meat and beans, stew, or hash, whatever you were lucky enough to grab. You know.
Okay.
And another little can with instant coffee and a couple of cigarettes and a piece of candy and stuff like that. And this is how I like to tell this story. The instant coffee. Now, the only place we could get water was the engine. So we'd run up to the front of the train, and the engineer would open up a spigot, and we'd get hot water from the engine to make our cup of coffee.
Wow.
God knows where the water came
Can you
from.
imagine?
Yeah, it probably wasn't
Can you imagine drinking train water?
so nice.
So that's how we get
But
our
it was boiled.
cup
and
of
coffee's
coffee.
coffee.
Yeah. So then we went. Now, see, here's where I can't remember the names, unfortunately. But we went up to the base of the Himalayas. Now we kept 2 squadrons in China and 1 squadron in India.
Okay.
Now, there was no gasoline or very little gasoline in China. So the pilots could only fly combat missions. They couldn't go up and practice or anything like that. We were flying gasoline in, and we had converted CB-24s, converted to tankers for gasoline. And the pilots would go into China and fly only when they had to, and then the squadron back in India, the pilots would come back and fly in India and keep themselves sharp, you know. Mm-hmm. And I chose, by that time I could have gone to China, but to fly over the Himalayas in a C-47, I chose not to go. I stayed in India.
Yeah, they're the highest mountains in the world.
Yeah, and the living conditions in China were, all they used to tell us that the Chinese use human manure to fertilize their rice paddies, and the odor, they said, was unbelievable. So anyway, we kept 2 squadrons in China and 1 in India, and we juggled the pilots back and forth. And so I stayed in India until it was time to come home, which we never knew when it was going to happen. So we got on a train and we came back across India again to Bombay.
Okay. What were the living conditions like in India?
Not good.
Oh, not good.
I've never heard anything.
Well, I said that.
Told me never go there.
You'd
ever.
have to.
Even
I told you
now.
that
He said don't.
to cross India, I mentioned that to you, is a story in itself.
In just the little compartment trains, right?
Yes.
These people, they work their rice paddies, and when they leave the rice paddy at night, the father would have like a bale of hair on his head. The mother would have a bale smaller than the father, and then the kids would, right down to the 4-year-old, and he'd have a little tiny neck, and they'd go home, you know. And the women work like, to build runways, they're like ants. It's a good description. Hundreds of them, you know. And there's a guy near the dirt, and the woman would come along with her little bucket, and then she put her bucket on the ground, and he'd scoop it full of dirt, and then he'd take one handle, she'd take one handle, and zip onto her head, and off she go. Now there's hundreds of them.
And they just keep keep working.
Probably more like thousands.
Then when they poured the cement, the men did this. They'd have a skin of some animal, a goat or something, I don't know, sheep or whatever it is. They'd fill it full of water. They'd fill the sheepskin full of water and then they'd spray this new cement. You got to keep the new cement damp with that hot sun over there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd build their runways. And I think they would get something like 16 cents an hour or something like that. And they employed them, and the women worked like slaves. They did all that. That was hard work.
Yeah,
and that sun.
That's actually impressive. You're getting 40 cents an hour in America, and they're getting 16
I was
cents
thinking
an hour.
that. Your salary is, more than double that.
Yeah, that's...
So that's one of the little stories. And then, like, if they were building a building, they had the bricks, you know. The women would put 6 or 7 or 8 bricks on their shoulder, and they'd go up that ladder to where the guy was working, you know.
Wow.
India is... did you ever hear of Ripley, Believe It or Not, by Ripley?
Yes.
Well, they used to say that 99% of Ripley's materials came from India. So now we're on the train back to Bombay. And we get on the USS George M. Randall.
George M. Randall?
Yep, that's a general. U.S. George M. Randall. And the biggest thing to tell you there is the first meal we had. I don't remember the meat, but we had mashed potatoes with gravy and green peas. And it was like heaven. And we took off from Bombay, and 15 days later, we stopped in Melbourne, I guess it is, Melbourne, Australia, for refueling. They wouldn't let us off the ship. No, they wouldn't let us get off the ship. They knew damn right well we probably wouldn't get back on again. But they had a problem. You don't have to put this down there, but I'll never forget it. Melbourne is on a big lake. Now, I wanted to go here, and you come into the lake here, but it was during the war, so they had mines, you know, so you had to come in, you know, you had to go, you had to know where you were going. And when we got to the place of where the dock was going, the winds were blowing like crazy. And they dropped the anchors on the Randall, the tugs were towing on, and we smashed into I thought sure that it was going to cave the ship, but it didn't. So anyway, we got our fuel, and we leave Australia, and I landed in San Pedro, California, 15 days later. It was a 30-day trip to get home.
Okay.
And we went to Camp Pendleton. It's a Marine camp.
Camp Pendleton.
Pendleton.
Still there.
And guess what? The first thing we wanted was a milkshake, an ice cream frap or something.
Delicious.
Yeah. We all went out and got a drink, an ice cream drink.
After all the heat and stuff,
yeah.
I'm sure.
Got on the train, came back home.
So you took from California a train all the way back?
Back to New England, yeah, back to Fort Devens.
Okay.
Yep.
And what did you do?
Well, the first thing I did is Frances, my wife by then, was living, she lost her father during the war, and her sister was a superintendent with the telephone company in New York. So Frances was zipped from Lowell to New York she went to work at the telephone company. She came back to Lowell when I got home. She came back to live with. She had a sister, Nancy, lived in Lowell, and I told her I propositioned marriage, and she said yes. And then now, and this is a cute little story. I said, you know, I got to go back to school. And she says, well, if you think I'm going to wait 4 more years for you, you're crazy. I'll never forget that. That's a true story. She says, if you think I'm going to wait for you 4 more years, you're crazy.
So then what
We
happened?
got married.
Right then?
No, I got home in March and we got married in
Yes.
June.
Yeah.
Wow.
Got married in June and the children started coming the following April. So we had 5 children, you know.
So you got married in June?
In June of 1945,
5.
yeah, I got home in March, yeah.
And then, so how many kids do you have?
5.
Wow.
5 children. And at the time there was no homes, you know. So I went to stay with my mother and my brother George, who was also in the service. He married a girl in Alabama. He came home the same time I did. We both came home with our wives. Both of them were pregnant. Both women were pregnant. And I stayed with my mother for a year. 1 year I lived with my mother.
Mm-hmm.
My brother George didn't. He gave up. He said, "Oh, I ain't gonna do this." He re-enlisted. He went back in the service. He was in the army, and he went back to France. From France, he was in the Korean War, and he got a battlefield promotion to a lieutenant, and he came out of the service a major. He did all right. He did it pretty good.
Huh?
I choose to get out, and I went to work everywhere, you know. So anyway.
So what did you do after when you came home?
Well, the first job I got was down here in Drake at Lowell Top Dye and Print Works. See, my brothers were in the dye stuff business, my older brothers. But by the way, I'm the youngest of 9 children. You can go back and put that.
Yeah.
And I'm the only one left of the 9. All my brothers and sisters are gone. I had one sister, you won't believe this one. I had one sister, just passed away last year.
Mm-hmm.
She had 13 children.
Wow.
She lived to be 104 years old. She died at the Duville Manor up here in Barnum Avenue. She had, so I got this all in writing. She had, I think it was 50 grandchildren and 90 great-grandchildren.
90?
90 great-grandchildren.
Wow.
They're all over the
Christmas.
place.
13 kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
13 kids. So that's the family. So anyway, I got married in June. We lived in these barracks for 5 years, and we saved up $600 and bought this house in 1952 with the $600 we had saved to put down. And from there on, it was struggle.
Struggle. And he graduated from
I went to school nights.
Lowell Textile Institute.
Oh, I can show you. I got some. Let me show you this one a second.
Which most people don't know that was its original name.
Because there's a story behind this too.
Okay. And what year was that?
47, I think it was.
So he did go right back to school.
At night.
At night, so it was part-time.
But now it's called UMass Lowell.
There's a story.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and before that it was called University of Lowell.
Okay.
Oh,
Before
of course.
that
Half
it
a
was
dozen
called
names.
Lowell Technological Institute.
Lowell
And
Technological.
before that, where he went, it was Lowell Textile Institute.
Well, this
Okay.
one, when I went there, for this one here, it was Lowell Technological.
Well, that was when you went back in 65.
Yeah, when I went back to school. So anyway,
One of these, though, says technology.
yes. This is textile.
Yeah, here's the first one.
Oh, in chemistry.
Yeah, and this
Not
is
my
Lowell.
strong suit.
Lowell Textile.
this is chemistry.
School. They didn't even call it an institute,
was-
I guess.
Yeah. or
That's another
university.
one. And then this is the only one where you get a
Associates.
associate degree. Now,
Right.
let me tell you about the associate degree. At the time, it was a 5-year course.
For an associate's?
So yeah,
Wow.
3 nights a week, 5 kids, 2 jobs, and studying. You try to figure that out.
No way.
And it's a not easy job.
No, it's not.
So anyway, I was dragging my feet, you know, because instead of going 3 nights, I'd cut back to 2, and I'd cut back to 1. And the dean got me when he put his arm around me. He says, "Bill, we got to get you out of here." That's the truth. He's the truth. He says, "I want you to go back to school 3 nights a week
Mhm.
for 1 year and take the courses that I had skipped over. You know, I had all the math courses, you know, right down to P-Chem and everything, you know, physical chemistry, and some of them were tough, believe me.
Oh, I know. Chemistry is
It was tough.
not so good together.
So anyway, I got that, and here we are. My wife just passed away. We had 5 children. She passed away in November.
I'm sorry.
64 and a half years.
I lived when we were
That's
married.
amazing.
60. We were married in 1945. Yeah.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the war, it would have been 70 years.
Yeah. So you had been seeing her before you'd gone away.
Oh,
High
yes.
school and
11th,
stuff.
11th grade, high school they met.
We
Wow.
courted each
In a
other on
homeroom.
the dance floor. My wife and I are ballroom dancers.
Really?
We got some trophies for dancing and everything. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that was our outlet.
That's great.
Ballroom dancing.
Well, with everything going on, school and
Yeah,
kids,
oh,
you gotta
yeah,
have
yeah.
some kind of.
Yeah.
Think about all the boys that you met in homeroom in 11th grade.
I met
I
her in
couldn't
high
even
school.
tell you their
And
names.
that's where they met.
We met at Lowell High School,
In
19. Yeah,
homeroom,
she was
yeah.
in room 137. I liked what I saw.
So when you told her that you were going to enlist, how did that?
I never told her.
Well, plus though, you were intending to come
I
home
never
that night.
told my mother or my wife to be, because we thought we were going to just go down to Boston and sign up
And then come
and
back.
then come
Yeah,
home.
get a uniform, that walk
That
around
was a-
studly looking in their uniform.
And then when they call you, you gotta go.
Yeah, that was
5
what
years
was.
later.
But as I showed you, it didn't work out that way. They put the uniform on us and zoom, Missouri. So I quoted my wife by mail. She wrote to me almost daily,
Right.
and all the time I was in the service.
So when you would send letters, were there things that you couldn't say?
Yeah,
They
like
told
we're
you
in
a
New
lot of-
Jersey.
Oh
And
yeah,
they asked you how
oh
you-
yeah, I
how
know you
they
couldn't
knew.
know.
Asked her,
The
yeah.
letters, it almost got to the point where you knew what was in the letter before you even opened it. We wrote so many letters that they became. But she was there when I come home.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So when you enlisted, you were with your two friends. You said,
Oh yeah,
right?
now Warren Reardon, Joe Hooley never came with us.
Warren Reardon.
Warren Reardon was with me, came home with me on the boat. And when we got to New York, he was my best man in our wedding.
Wow. So you made a lot of friends.
No,
when you
he
were
lived
gone and
on-
stuff?
He lived on Bridge Street. He has a family. They lived on Bridge Street, and Lowell Warren did. But he's gone now too.
But they had a buddy program, almost like they still do to this day. If you enlisted with a friend, the two of you could stay together through training.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, in our case, it was just luck because
Well,
apparently
one of you, what was
Joe
it?
Hooley apparently didn't make an impression as far as mechanical ability or something because he didn't get he. You know where he went? At the time we envied him. He went to someplace in Connecticut and he became an MP, military police. But he came
initially,
home, and
you were-
where we are, and always we thought he was well off.
But initially, was it Warden that went in to take the eye exam to be a pilot?
Yes, yes.
They were going to be pilots.
That's what I was going to ask you. Did you have, when you enlisted,
Oh,
you
yes.
want to.
And
Probably.
the other guy, both had to take the eye exam to be a pilot.
Mhm.
So the other guy just randomly, he goes first kind of thing, and he failed. So he can't be a pilot. So he was like, well, then forget it. I'm not going to go
gonna
either.
So you didn't even take the test?
Never took the
No.
test, which was a good thing. Because if we'd have gone in as pilots, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
This is probably true.
Not
I'd
from
be
day one of
long
the
gone.
war.
No.
Nobody lived from day one.
Because
of
it's
the
just a
war.
little side remark. The planes that we went overseas with, compared to what they had to take on with you, was like you driving a little junk and me driving a brand new car. The Germans had us all over us.
Really?
The stuff we had was junk.
Really?
Come on in, I want to show you something.
Oh yeah, the guys that went first got slaughtered.
Let me just stop this really quick.
Oh, let me show you this. My daughter